At the end of those 2 months, I was the strongest I'd ever been in my life. Aesthetically, I was at one of the leanest points I've ever been in my life. But most importantly, in terms of my energy, my mental clarity, and just overall how I felt, it was the best I'd ever felt in my life.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in, and welcome back to another Sunday Q&A. Before we start, just a quick reminder that if you like what you see, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of our videos. Also, if you have any questions, ask them down in the comment section, and we'll either respond to you directly in the comment section or answer your questions during another one of our weekly Sunday Q&As. Alright, time to answer your questions.
Hey everyone, last week I made a post on Facebook mentioning how I was going to be trying the carnivore diet for the third time. The first two times that I did it were in January of 2013, and then I tried it again in April of 2015, and both times were the absolute best I've ever felt in my life. So I decided to go on it again, and this time I'm going to stick to it a little bit longer. But before I get into why exactly I'm going on it and why I tried it in the first place, a little bit about my medical history. In late 2009, I was getting really bad stomach pains, and every time I went to the washroom, I would see some blood in my stool. So in 2010, I had booked an appointment to see a gastroenterologist, and this would have been around March of 2010. And it had gotten to the point where it was so bad that right after I had gone to see the gastroenterologist, he had diagnosed me with ulcerative colitis, and that same week I was hospitalized for about 10 days. For 10 days, I couldn't hold anything down. Everything that I ate, within a few seconds, I would just throw it up. And this continued throughout the course of the year. In 2010, I was hospitalized 3 separate times, each of them lasting between 7 to 10 days. So that's kind of where I started to really begin to look into more holistic health. And it was also at the time that I had discovered Paul Chek from another one of the trainers that I was working with at the gym that I had been working at the time. So I ended up following the principles in his book, How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy. I tried doing a rotation diet, and I also incorporated paleo. So I've pretty much been doing the paleo and rotation diet since 2010 with really, really good results. But I noticed that even though my symptoms had subsided, I wasn't feeling as good as I could have. Every once in a while, symptoms would start to come back. It never got to the point where I was hospitalized again or to the point where I was seeing blood in my stool, but I would just occasionally get a little bit of upset stomach, and I just had enough of it, so I wanted to try doing something else. So that's when in January of 2013, I decided to try going carnivore for 2 months, and they were the best 2 months I've ever felt in my life. At the end of those 2 months, I was the strongest I'd ever been in my life. Aesthetically, I was at one of the leanest points I've ever been in my life. But most importantly, in terms of my energy, my mental clarity, and just overall how I felt, it was the best I'd ever felt in my life. Now, after a couple months, I decided to go back to just a regular paleo diet where I still incorporated a lot of meat into my diet, but I would also do meat and nuts for breakfast, and then whatever meat I had for breakfast, I would have that throughout the rest of the day as well. And then I would incorporate some vegetables. And the way I did it with my rotation diet was I did a 7-day rotation. So whatever food I had on Monday, I would not eat from that food family until the following Monday. And same thing, Tuesday, I wouldn't eat that food until the next Tuesday, Wednesday till the next Wednesday, and so on. I had pretty good results with that, but every once in a while, I did notice that some symptoms would come back. And that's when in January 2015, even though at the time I was opposed to veganism, I thought, you know what, let me give it a try, see how it works for me. Because it's kind of stupid to be against something if you're not actually going to try it yourself and see how your body responds to it. So I went on the vegan diet in January of 2015, and for the first 2 weeks, I felt absolutely amazing. I noticed that around wintertime, my digestion would always get a little bit sluggish. So that's the main reason why I decided to try it for January of 2015. And again, for the first 2 weeks, I felt amazing. My stomach felt great. I was going to the bathroom normally. And then around the 2-week mark, that's when everything started to go downhill. I started getting really bad symptoms in terms of gastrointestinal distress. Every single time that I went to the washroom, it would be diarrhea. And this went on for the remainder of time that I was on the vegan diet. When I went on the vegan diet, I had originally planned to go on it for 3 months. So even though my symptoms started getting pretty bad after the first couple weeks, I wanted to tough it out, to give it the 3 months to see how my body would respond over the duration of those 3 months. I noticed that every single time I would eat a particular grain, I had 7 different grains that I would cycle through. I tried millet, buckwheat, amaranth, quinoa, kasha, millet, and brown rice. Some of them were fine. When it came to teff and quinoa, after the first couple weeks, I noticed that every time I ate those within 5 minutes, I had to go to the washroom and it was diarrhea. So I cut those two out. And then the following week, things got a little bit better. But then I noticed that with a couple of the other grains, same thing would happen. Every time I went to the washroom, I would get diarrhea. And it got to the point where the only 3 grains that I was consuming that somewhat gave me a normal feeling and didn't make me go to the washroom terribly were millet, buckwheat, and brown rice. So I kept consuming those ones for the remainder of the vegan diet. Now, grains weren't the only thing that I was consuming when I was on the vegan diet. I was also consuming a lot of other things like lentils, particularly sprouted lentils, and lots of fibrous vegetables like broccoli, cauliflower. But I still didn't feel as good as I did when I was either on paleo or as good as I did when I was on carnivore. So from the vegan diet, I immediately jumped back into the carnivore diet, and that would have been in April of 2015. And immediately when I went on it, within 3 days, all of my symptoms disappeared. So I went from every time I went to the washroom, it being diarrhea, to normal stools again within 3 days of going carnivore. And I did that for a couple months. Again, best I'd ever felt in my life when I was on carnivore. But then after a couple months, I decided to go back to just a regular paleo diet. I did meat and nuts for breakfast. Whatever meat I had that day, I would eat that throughout the rest of the day, however many meals I had. And then I would also toss in vegetables, but not too many vegetables. And I felt pretty good on that, but not as good as I felt on carnivore. So in January of this year, I decided that I wanted to do 3 months at a time, just trying 4 different diets every 3 months of the year, and then report back to you guys and see how exactly I felt, and just kind of chronicle my story and see exactly how I felt, and then also give you guys some information on different things that you could try. Now, just because these certain things work for me, it doesn't mean it's going to work for you. You can go on a vegan diet and feel absolutely amazing. Me personally, it wasn't for me. And I was going to try it again for 3 months at January of 2020. But I was scared about the way that I felt and the symptoms that I experienced back the first time that I did it. So I decided, you know what, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to stick to doing paleo the way I am doing it. But on my resting days, which are days 3 and 5 of my workout routine. So I have a 5-day split. Day 1, 2, and 4, I work out. Day 3 and 5, I rest. So on days 3 and 5, I decided that I was going to go vegetarian. And I was also going to do fasting on those days. So I would just eat breakfast, and then I wouldn't eat for the rest of the day, and then I would eat again the following breakfast. What happened to me was in the first couple weeks of going vegetarian on my non-workout days, I ended up losing 8 pounds. I was getting a lot more sore from my workouts, and I also noticed that my strength had been going down. So I was going to do this for 3 months originally, but then towards the last month, on my vegetarian days, I started incorporating a little bit of meat. Occasionally, what I would do on my fasting days were the day before, I would pick up a rotisserie chicken, I'd eat half of it, and then the following morning, I would eat half of it with all of the vegetables that I was consuming on that particular day. And I noticed that my soreness was limited. I was still getting a little bit sore, but it wasn't the same soreness that I was getting when I was just eating vegetarian on those particular days. So I decided to cut my vegetarian experiment short by 1 month and go completely carnivore on March 1st of this year. So just last week. And immediately within the first week of going carnivore, already my energy levels are better. I have a lot more mental clarity. One thing that was a little bit weird this first week was every time after eating breakfast, I didn't feel like I had eaten. It felt like I didn't eat anything at all. That's not to say that I was hungry after I ate, but immediately after I ate, normally when I would do the meat and nuts for breakfast in the morning when I was doing paleo, every time I ate, it felt like I had food in my stomach. Now that I'm back on carnivore, I noticed that after I eat, it feels like I don't have anything in my stomach. Again, I'm not hungry. It's not that I'm feeling really, really hungry after I eat. It's just it feels like I didn't eat at all. It was a little weird feeling for the first couple days, but now I've kind of gotten used to it. And the other thing is this past week during my workouts, I haven't been getting sore, and I have actually increased the intensity of my workouts. I started incorporating a little bit more strongman training, so you would expect that the soreness would be there a little bit more than it had been in the past when I wasn't doing the strongman training. That's it for today. I will continue to do these Q&As every week, so if you have any questions either related to my experience with the carnivore diet, if you have any questions related to the carnivore diet, or if you have any questions at all related to anything else, feel free to ask them down in the comment section and I will get back to you. But that's it for now, so I'll see you again next week.
That's it for today's video. Thanks for tuning in. If you liked what you saw, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of our videos. And if you have any questions, Ask them down in the comment section, and we'll either respond to you directly in the comment section or answer your questions during another one of our weekly Sunday Q&As. Keep fit, have fun, and we'll see you again next week.